Hello and welcome to Tribe Speaking. In this edition of Tribe Speaking, we are discussing on racism, especially focusing on the Northeast people residing in metropolitan cities, either for higher studies or for searching for employment. In the previous parts of the edition, we have discussed on what is racism, how it occurs, mindset of the racist people, and the psychological trauma experienced by the target people. In this part, we shall discuss more on the social and historical construct that led to racial attacks against Northeast people, identity politics, how rest of the India sees Northeast, and vice versa, and how it leads to racism. Also, today we will be picking up few cases of racial attacks which had happened in the last few months. To discuss on these topics, we have Professor Devina Stockson. She came to Delhi 20 years ago for higher studies, and now she teaches social psychology at School of Human Studies, Ambedkar University. I welcome Professor.
Thank you, Sigmund, for having me.
Professor, can you please explain on how you understand the social historical construct of mainland India, especially the North Indian community, that led to see the Northeast people as other people, and how it led to racial attacks and intolerance towards Northeast people?
Okay, thank you for the question, and it's very important to address it because without that, it's going to be very difficult to understand full-blown idea about racism. So we are basically, when we are talking about social and the historical construct, we are basically talking about the systemic racism. So talking about systemic racism, that we understand as a kind of racism which exists in the social systems level. So we need to dig further into understanding the differences between the societies that we divide broadly into Northeast and non-Northeast vis-a-vis racism. For this discussion, I am going to put aside the problems in laws and regulations related to unrest political scenarios, as it calls for another focused discussion only on that matter, such as Armed Forces Special Power Act, which many remorse about, and Citizenship Amendment Act, which recently came up, etc., and the protests around it. So I'll focus more on the immediate systems that make social systems, okay, so that makes it possible for racism to perpetuate silently and insidiously in the metro city. Stressing on the everydayness of racism, I'm going to start by highlighting my own vantage point. This city, Delhi, that I live in, and also other metro cities, though almost makes a second home to some Northeast settlers, mainly due to capital resources, jobs, and infrastructures. It never ceased to astonish us with a sense of discomfort in many things that we deal with every day. So it ranges from going out for groceries to getting violent physical attacks with racial slurs. It's not just about just a case of restricting permission of entry of Northeast people to the grocery stores. It is also about worrying who in the marketplaces today is going to brush up his fingers on my butt while I'm buying vegetables and act as if it happens accidentally or nothing has happened. So in a way, I'm talking about frequent street molestation that many girls from Northeast and also girls in general undergo. However, I like to also stress in this context on the frequency in which Northeast girls are taken sexual advance in public as an example of social system. Before I go to the historical part, such as they ask you, "Chaloge mere gari pe bet jao," or sticking their fingers out and pressing your butt or your breast, etc., in the public, and acting as if they know nothing about it. Right at the moment, you're wondering, when somebody does something like that, at that moment, you're wondering how on earth that a man who's holding a phone, looking at a phone, and also carrying a dog manages to stick out his fingers to dress up your body inappropriately. Okay. It seems like an excellent multitasker, huh? But only these quick wits are used in understanding general humanity and cultural differences. I definitely wish that. Okay. Well, you may deal with it at the individual level, that comes within your capacity in that moment, but it does leave a deepening disgust of proper Indian looking people, men in particular, in the context of the example that I just cited. This misconduct doesn't come from so-called illiterate or educated who appear to be quite tidy and well learned. Not quite sure if their education even helps. These these repeated exposures certainly shape your counter stereotypical impressions to notice girls that all proper Indian looking men in this context are all are perverts. Okay. So it's a reality of how social and emotional distances are created between non-notice and notice people. I'm putting together these non-notice and notice people only for the context of racism, but I'm not taking for granted that there are differences within these broad divisions that I'm picking up. But this is not just a case of gender specific here, but there are also women involved in other examples of racism against notice, which I'm not going to detail right now. But I'm like, I'm going to stick to one. So our reactions as notice people, I like to highlight some of these before I start on the historical part. We, the notice people, are first of all very tired of living under the mainstream gauge, abhorred by the sneaky misconducts and violences, and also quite bored of the predictability of the racist modus operandi and their cover-ups. Yes, I find the rubbishes of everyday racism against Northeast people in metro cities utterly boring. As stylish, fashionable, and relatively more liberal migrants from considerably alien cultures like ours to the majority Indians, we don't like to end our lives and identity formation with boredom by just cuddling up in a corner and missing the challenging adventures the city also offers. So let's have a thoughtful look back at the social systems, the social constructs that are inexplicably binding us somehow, disturbing us and making us furious sometimes, violating our basic rights and also boring at the same time. With this, I am trying to say that it's important to dig a little further into some of the excruciating social systems for our own understanding and better deeds. This is when one starts to see the importance of understanding the culture and tradition of where we migrate and continue living instead of feeling dejected and overwhelmed by it. So of course, more importantly, we do take pride in knowing where we come from, our festivities, nature, joyous culture, happy homes, our backgrounds, despite of poor infrastructures, neglected developmental processes, and the armed conflict, which is persisting in these areas. Let's have a quick look at India as is perceived after years of exposure to racism faced by individuals from the Northeast, commonly which constructs a picture of how Northeast, despite internally heterogeneous, have quite a common perception of the majority Indians. So there is already a history of social class and caste system in India, even before different Northeast states were merged to India after independence. So I won't be even pretending to have understood this so well, this very well, because it's already multi-layered and complicated social class and caste system, and I'm still exploring though. We read some and then have understood to a certain extent, but the complications within these systems are beyond reach because they were experientially absent in the Northeast people. Well, Northeast states have different methods of discrimination within, which I don't want to get into while talking about racism as a as a matter of common concern for all the Northeast people living outside hometown. And that should not also serve as counter argument to trivialize, neutralize, and camouflage the larger issues of racism, which is yet to be adequately recognized and addressed thoroughly. While nothing can be generalized as such, but there are some common understandings we can give from Northeast perspectives about how non-Northeast Indians see us uh, uh, and what we think about it. Okay. my first point is on the Northeast is perceived by the existing majority Indian social system as a lower caste. And what kind of lower caste is something we need to really dig into, that kind of lower caste that they are perceiving us. So the still existing caste system openly discriminates people from lower caste by going against the constitution that says otherwise. I don't have to read a book or quote a theories or to understand these open discrimination against lower caste and economically backward people in the metro cities. It's evident itself in the day-to-day encounters of simple incidents like rickshaw pullers being shouted at by someone riding a scooty or a car, even when it's the latest Ford. Okay, so there are plenty of examples that one can give. A quick example from my own experience would be, I went to buy a furniture Timarpur, from a family in Timarpur who advertised on OLX, and then I reached there. Since after the agreement of the prices and everything, I could not get down the furniture myself. So I had to ask help of the rickshaw puller, and the lady immediately pointed out that what are you, kisko bula rahe ho? हमारे घर पे वो अंदर नहीं आ सकते. And I immediately asked, why are you saying that? Why can't he come inside? Because I have told him to ask me out, help me out. And the lady didn't reply, but kept staring quite disapprovingly at the rickshaw man. So I didn't want to waste more time there and ask her son who stood there watching the whole scene, to help us get the furniture down. He must be around 17 years of age. But as the son took a step, the lady uttered again, "No, he can't help. Jao beta andar padhai karo." Okay. So I had to completely drop that. I was quite appalled by what was happening, and then I said that if that is the attitude that you're carrying about certain people in and around your own environment, then I'm going to drop this idea of, like, buying this furniture from you. So we left the place, and me and my cousin brother left the place. So these are the kind of existing systems that shapes how Indians behave with people from lower caste even today. So I'm coming to this point of why lower caste ill-treating lower caste is associated, how it is associated with Northeast people as some kind of caste. Okay, I'm coming to that. Right. Just give me 2 more minutes here. What's even more important to raise here are the attributions made about Northeast people vis-a-vis caste. Majority Indians seem to think that Northeast people belong to a sort of unknown and unnamed lower caste, and find it legitimate to discriminate whenever and wherever possible, just like they would do with any other a person from a lower caste section of the society that they belong to, and not the Northeast side. Okay. So because the existing normative social system of caste class allows them to bend the constitutional rights of lower caste people and misbehave when they want. Majority Indians are yet to come to the terms of racism, except for those who have faced racism in white race dominant foreign countries like Australia, New Zealand, US, UK, etc. Lower caste in educational institutions are categorized as SC, ST, or OBC, but to the Northeast people, being SC, ST, and OBC are constitutional arrangements for the economically backward people of the country and have nothing to do with the majority Indian caste class system. And there's often generalizations of all Northeast people as belonging to reserved category, which is not the case. We have narrative from fellow Northeast people who belong to general category, but were assumed of belonging to reserved category and were discriminated against just based on the assumed category. So isn't it astonishing enough to know that some admin staff in Delhi University determine your category of admission by just looking at your face or hearing your name? So reserved category is for the poor in general in the Indian Constitution. But the poor in non-Northeast India as a whole belongs to lower caste. The poor has to be a lower caste, and hence the connotations of Northeast as lower caste. And Northeast perceived as lower caste group, a social group who are also racially minority, become easy scapegoats of those Indians who are accustomed to ill-treating the lower caste. So, okay. So yeah, if you have further questions. These were the first point that I wanted to make.
Okay, so what I was asking was that when the lady who was selling the furniture, when she did not allow the rickshaw driver to come up to help you, do you think that she did not allow because of the rickshaw driver or because of you? Why do you think she did not allow?
You know, at that point of time, I wasn't thinking about racism as such, but I was thinking more in terms of how she would normally. I was already allowed inside her house, so and then we were negotiating. She gave us tea and all, and then we were sitting and we negotiated on the price, and there was an agreement already made. Then I called the rickshaw puller, and the rickshaw puller was not allowed to enter the house because, first of all, my first impression was that he belongs to a lower caste. He's from the poor family, and he's dirty. Okay, and that the flat was on the first floor, but the person has to stand. As soon as he shouted at the person, it was not even a normal, like, normal tone of telling the person to not come up, but like he almost screamed at the person. How could you, like, how could you even think about, coming, entering our house? So the person stood quite submissively. That was the observation I have made. But at that point of time, that was not. I'm not yet creating this issue as a case of racism, but I am trying to say that how normally the lower caste people are seen and ill-treated by the so-called middle classes or higher caste in the existing Indian system. And in general, I was trying to later make this point in my later part of explanation, that in general, how Northeast people are seen as some kind of, uh, 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 some sort of, not unknown, unsorted lower caste, which does not exactly belong to Dalit, but they would appropriate it somehow as in the existing range of caste that is pertinent in the already existing social systems. Okay, in the Varna system, for example. Okay, so
But
we are seen
what I
as
think
a
is
lower
that
caste. Yes.
actually she did not allow the rickshaw driver to come up, whereas you were allowed inside her house.
Right.
What I think is that they have actually most of the Indian society, they have a caste system which is more like vertical hierarchy, whereas
Mm.
the way they see the people of Northeast, it does not directly fall under the vertical hierarchy, but it is more like the racism that happens across the world between the which is mostly like speak in terms of the color, like brown people to white people to black people, the black people to the Asian, where they go say yellow or something like that. So I think they see the system in the vertical system, in the vertical hierarchy they have about it. I think we do not come under that, but they see us more like some kind of other type of people. So,
Mm.
so I think there's slight
Yeah, but
disagreement.
I said, I said, yeah, that's okay. I mean, you can disagree, but when I said seen as some kind of unknown lower caste, in the sense to express that they tend to see, they tend to kind of, put, I mean, forget about caste, but they tend to kind of put Northeast as inferior, as a weaker section of the society, and for them, how they differentiate who's weaker and who's, like, who's stronger in the society is through the caste system. Okay, through the economic background, etc. So that was the kind of reasoning I was trying to draw from there.